and I've seen how damaged they've become. And I said to my wife, I go, why am I mowing this? It makes no sense. And so I let it sit. And now I know what I'm going to have to do Sunday, Monday, because now with all the rain we've had, it's just like juicing, back in the day.
It's been parched. Yeah, it was funny when I took the trash out this week. We always put it out on Tuesdays, and they come and they collect, lawn waste or whatever every other week. So I'm out there, I'm putting everything out in the morning. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure today is like yard clippings day. Well, nobody had anything out because nobody's been cutting their grass. It's been 150 degrees outside.
Right.
But, it was kind of nice just having that, warm stretch. That was nice. Sherry loved it. She was able to finally sit outside and relax for a little while. I did do some yard work, and then, we just got that torrential rain on Monday night, and it just, I feel like it's interesting driving past all of the crops. And, my father-in-law made a good point over the weekend that I've been kind of more observant than normal. We're hitting that deadline of knee high by the 4th of July. He's like, well, some of the crops probably aren't just delayed or not as high as others. They probably just planted them that way so that when they're harvesting them, they're not having to do them all at once. So they get like a 2-week cycle of going through them all.
They're staggering it.
They're staggering them.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny when you sit. I texted one of my buddies last week. I was out and I was kind of driving around looking for wildlife, and I'm parked and I see dirt on one side with little 6-inch sprouts. I see knee-high corn on the other side. It's like it's just polar opposites, but that would make sense that if they're staggering them and they need a couple weeks to, harvest their crops and do all of that. But, Tim, it's kind of my favorite time of the year in the sense that you get some of the coolest imagery of wildlife now. This morning, as I was driving in, I saw a doe out in a cornfield, and I think it's just the coolest, most picturesque time to see them because the corn's coming up about belly high, and you can just see them walking through. And the only thing better is when it's just a little bit taller and there's horns hanging on the top of the deer, and all you see is the rack in the head walking through a cornfield. I think that's just such a cool thing that we get to experience here in Wisconsin with all the ag that we have around us.
I know that one of the things that you wanted to talk about today was changes for the Wisconsin deer season.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we'd leap off right there because, making the reference to the deer walking through the corn, and everything is kind of coming to a head this week, right? Yeah,
so this week on the 26th, in Kenosha, the city or the county deer advisory councils, which is comprised of citizen volunteers and then also recommendations from local experts and for deer management, they do these surveys every year, and they kind of go through that and they get the people's input and what should we do here. So it's not just kind of an across the board just decision that these CDACs make. They actually do weigh in what people have to say about local conditions, and we've talked about these surveys in the past that they have, I don't know, whatever it is, 100 questions, and some of them seem so random that they have nothing to do with us. And, you see the results and so many people don't answer a lot of the questions. I think that's kind of nice because it's probably not relevant for them. Now, if you're in the northern third of the state, there has been a lot of talk about what to do, and there's a higher level of predation that's been happening. And they're trying to make some changes with those in the sense of what do we do in order to try and balance out our herd, and what do we do to try and revive our herd that we have in the northern third of the state. So there's specific counties that are in play here, and what they've decided and what they are hoping to implement then is that they can actually change what the harvest quotas are going to be for those areas that are impacted by the wildlife and really by predation, whether that's wolves or coyotes or bear or whatever it is that they're thinning their herd in the northern third of the state. What they're trying to do is they're trying to change the regulations to be a no-doe harvest for the next 3 years, or I thought I even saw 4 years to try and revive that population up there. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I think it makes sense just really on a very surface level. We got to try and do something to bring that herd back. I think they're overlooking the main point of it, of there's a predation problem. There's a predator problem in the northern part of the state that nobody likes to talk about, in changing that.
Yeah, these are, if I read the article correctly, these are some of the biggest changes in the last 10 to 15 years, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting, we don't really think about the changes that are coming, and right now it seems like there's a lot of noise in the outdoor industry with public land sales that we'll probably get into at some point, but we just kind of go on with our lives and we never really think about it until these things start to happen. And then it's like red alert. Everybody's concerned. Everybody wants to say something about it. And I think it helps us as a reminder that these questionnaires that we're all able to do at the beginning of the year, like that February, March timeframe, they matter. And if you want your voice heard, it's really important to do that. And it's also important to just reach out to your local representatives, your Senate representatives and your congressmen and women that are responsible for your areas so that your voices can be heard, which is what's happening right now.
We always love to hear the voice of Paul Wagner. Wags, are you with us?
I am. I'm actually here down in Dallas, Texas, where the screaming heat is about 105 in this city.
Well, the past week got you prepped for it, buddy. That's what it was all about, right? Getting you prepped.
It did.
Hey, we were just talking about the changes that are primarily happening in northern Wisconsin, but I was thinking about this. It's not in my backyard, so I'm not really concerned about it. But then eventually we know, Wags, it will be in your backyard. That's why you need to be concerned about it now, right?
Yeah, so I jumped in late, obviously. I apologize. I had to drop the boys off at the weight room, Planet Fitness, and let them guys work out, and I'm just going to sit out here and drink some coffee. But, no, when I read over Tasker's email, I didn't get to that part where what we were talking about. I did the public hunting land or the public land, and I did see the bow. So I know those are two topics that you're going to address later, but I don't know what we are talking about right now. I apologize.
So I think very quickly. So we had talked about just some of the Deer Advisory Council, some of the questionnaires that we had done at the beginning part of the year, just the change in the harvest quota for the next couple of years, like 3 to 4 years for the northern part of the state, and how they're going to change their quota for antlerless harvests in order to try and revive that population up in the northern part of the state.
Oh, gotcha. So when I caught the back end of it, you said how important it is to fill out those questionnaires and be responsive. It always seems like the people that don't respond to those things, or we delete and let it go, and then when something goes and our voice isn't heard, we become upset. So I agree with that last part you said. Those questionnaires, those town board meetings, anything NRB, anything with the DNR, it is important. If you really want your voice to be heard, you've got to fill out things or be present to voice it.
Hey, Wags, one of the things that is in our backyard, and I don't really know much about this. I think there's just some different regulations for where to hunt, when to hunt, how long you have to hunt, and do some of those. Do you know much about the metro subunit areas?
No, I just see that they have some extended, and last time when we were talking to one of our the guys over at Buck Rub, we were saying, or he was saying that those metro units, and if this is where you're going with it, that expansion was due to public criticism, public saying that due to the fact that hunting, the animals are moving to the safe place, and those metro units become that, where their squirrel feeders are hit up and their gardens are crushed. So if that's where you're going with that, that's what I heard, and I just remember that from years past. But those metro units do expand, and obviously you see it in the deer hunting regulations that we see from the DNR every year, that they do have expanded seasons to prevent and to kind of curb that harvest. But is there any way we can shoot them with sleeping darts and then send them
and then put them out in your food plot?
This is like people who build houses on golf courses. And then they put up a sign that says, stay out of my yard.
Right.
You built the house on a golf course.
Yeah.
Balls are going to go in your yard. I'm going to come get it.
Make sure that your insurance is paid up because you may have an issue with your siding or windows.
My goodness.
Hey, what I was going to say about that is, to me, it really only looks like, so it says slightly modified for northern forest, central forest, and near many metro zones for 2025 for the hunting seasons this upcoming year. The main change that I saw in that was that the Waukesha County Metro subunit, it used to only be a portion of the county. It is now all the way out to the border. That was the only change that I saw that really made a difference. And kind of for me, I think about that because, I'm right in that area of where that border was. So I kind of had to be conscious about where I was doing any late season hunting. Okay. And fortunately for me, everything's posted by us. So,
right.
It's a bow only zone. They've got dates right on the sign. And I would assume that if those changes were to go into effect, if there was anything that impacted those season dates, that we didn't have that extended January season, they would update those signs as well. But it's always good just to make note of what these changes are. Because, for us, we're, also talking to our Madison people, there's been some changes with the Dane County metro subunit area as well. It never hurts just to kind of keep apprised of what is happening with those, because it may slightly vary how late or when you're done, or, any of those changes that might come into play that directly impact our listeners, but also, the hunters of southeastern Wisconsin.
There was not a chance in hell I was going to do that. So I had to pull out a big league card. Though it was on my own money, on my own dime, that is fine. But those boys rode almost 20 hours.
Oh,
man.
Wow.
Not good, especially through the storms I heard, through the heat, through the you know what? No, I will not ride a bus more than I think what I've had to do is now like that 7-hour mark, because I can fly one way when we go into like Kansas City, like I did earlier this year. Then we go somewhere by bus, and then it's just hard when we have a night game and then we have a game the next day for me to get a connecting flight. So if I can move both legs of the trip on a plane, I'm doing it. But one leg will help, and that's what I've been doing. So this is a 2-legger.
So for those who don't know, Paul Wagner, former big league pitcher for numerous teams, including the Brewers and the Pirates, among others, is the pitching coach for the Lake Country Dockhounds, and they're in the state of Texas. Which I want to ask you one baseball question before we dive back into the tailgate talk there, Wags. You've seen him pitch a couple of times now. At least I'm assuming you have. What do you think of this Mizorowski kid now that you've seen him at the major league level?
Obviously he's got a plus arm. You see an 80. So if you know, baseball scales go from 20 to 80 in ratings or rankings. They try to, their scouts try to, project and see what a kid is capable of doing with the right tutelage, let's just say. He's an 80. I've never seen it, but I think, and I've told the guys on the show, I think that this is a situation where a guy with this type of an arm performs better at the big league level than he does at the minor league level. Because you're going to look at his minor league numbers down in Nashville, and you're going to say, he goes 5 innings, gives up 4 hits, walks 5, strikes out 8. And you're like, man, this kid's not ready. But that's what the Milwaukee Brewers did. They went down there, they saw him, and they saw how or why his numbers were kind of skewed that way. And they realized that this power arm, first of all, does not belong in the minor leagues. This power arm belongs in the big leagues. And again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's only so many bullets in everybody's chamber, sort of like the a la Pittsburgh Pirates with Paul Skeens. You know what? There's only so many times. I hate to.
I'm glad you said Skeens, because we thought you were going.
I thought you were going to reference yourself.
I thought you were going to reference yourself too. I thought you were going to say Paul Wagner, but
no, so you have to take advantage of this power arm, and that's what the Milwaukee Brewers are doing. So obviously, it's a great piece to have. It's a great asset. It's a great pitcher, and I just wish him the best. And you wish good health. That's the biggest thing. Good health.
All right, you ready here, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. It's time now for Tailgate News. Here's lead anchor, Eric Tesker. I change it every week.
I love that. And it always keeps me on my toes, so I appreciate that. All right, now for the news.
For the news.
Well, first I'm going to just touch on the public lands thing. It seems to be the hottest topic in the outdoor industry, even over the big class action lawsuit. So there was some legislation that was being brought to the forefront of a senator from Utah that was proposing the sale of something like 3 million acres of public lands. And, you know, a lot of uproar. Senator Mike Lee of Utah has just been flooded with messages from outdoor enthusiasts, whether that's hunters, hikers, anglers, whatever that might be. And earlier in the week, there was a tweet from him that said, "You responded, I listened, changes are coming soon," only for him to just slightly revise down his number of public lands that were on the chopping block for sale. And it sounds like the uproar is going to continue. I mean, there's a lot of people that are frustrated by this, and I think that the biggest thing for everybody is, you know, here in Wisconsin, we're not in a position that we're necessarily concerned about it because, you know, it's like, okay, well, the Chequamegon isn't on the chopping block, but it's relevant in the sense, and I had a conversation with our buddy Doug Russell about this before we started today. And I said, you know, I kind of liken it to the sense of there's something that may be happening somewhere else, and until it's the Eau Claire County Forest, Eric doesn't care about it, but then it's too late. So I think there's a nice sense of bipartisan support in opposition of this, because it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on. People want to have access to national parks, state parks, national forests, and all of those things. And they want to keep every acre that we have available for those people to be able to go outside and enjoy the outdoors, whether that's those small towns that rely on the economy from visitors, or the people who are, you know, anxiously awaiting to hear if they've been, you know, selected for an elk tag in Montana or Utah or mule deer or whatever that is, just to be able to continue those experiences that we love and cherish in the outdoors. We want to be able to protect those in any capacity. And now it's really the big story in the outdoor industry. Wagner, my thought on this whole thing... I'll let you chime in here. My whole thought is it reminded me immediately of the Corner Crossing big lawsuit that happened last year.
Oh, yeah.
Where the checkerboards
we talked a lot about that.
Of the public lands are actually not, you know, they're landlocked in the sense. And I thought, you know, if it's going to be an issue, I'll probably get skewered for this. If this like was a big thing that a lot of people saw, I'm sure I would get skewered for this. My thought is they should take, if there's a concern and there's like a revenue generator, I think it's all for drilling. Okay. I think that's the crux of it. I think if they had to do something with it, they should target those first, because that seems to be the hardest to access and the biggest scrutiny of the private landowners around that, that they should do something with those first if they're going to sell off public lands. That was like I don't have a full thought on it, but that's my initial correlation of what to do about this. If there's a need to sell off, target those checkerboard parcels first, if we don't have a choice. Okay. But as I go back to previous conversations that we've had, now I don't know the exact word. Every single license, every single fishing, there is a tax that is taken. I'm going to say Pitney Bowes, but I think that's like that's a paper company.
It's a paper company, yeah.
It's Pittman Robertson. Pittman Robertson and the Dingle Johnson Act, which I've never heard of the Dingle Johnson Act.
That can be confused with the Dingleberry Johnson Act, but that's something completely different.
Okay, so those monies have been taken, and we have learned through our conversations over the past 3 years that those monies from hunters, from fishermen, fisherwomen, hunter women, from the outdoors. Those monies have been used from our outdoors to purchase land, to acquire land that, again, was acquired but was not opened up to the public for hunting, or it was only opened up to wildflowers, prairie grasses, uninhabitable stuff that you wanted to walk through in trails. And I agree you need to have that. But if those monies are coming, and that money is generated from people who want to hunt and do things out in the wild like we are talking about, then those things. So my point would be, if you're going to take away land, you take back the land that was recently purchased. And I'm using Wisconsin, and I know that was Idaho, Montana, Utah. I know that was far west. I do know that. But we know specific stories that happened in Madison, from the people from Madison that have told us that these properties and these land parcels, these huge parcels, were purchased from hunter money and not used for the hunter and the outdoorsman.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I was hoping that I was looking at this article and I was hoping to just see kind of like an Excel spreadsheet of like where some of this money was actually going. Of course, it's all words, and it's I'm not smart enough to digest.
Well, remember when Kaz told us, Eric, Kaz told us that they took that money from those licenses and they bought over 791 acres somewhere off of a public spot, and then they refused public hunting. It became just a sanctuary. And right. I get it. You want your sanctuaries, but those monies should be donated from sanctuary people or something rather than hunter people.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, it's almost reminds me of, if you guys have seen this, about in Illinois, they have betting, right? They're going to put a tax on every time you place a bet.
Right.
It's like a service fee when you buy a concert ticket. Now, the state of Illinois, they don't have enough. Well, they never have enough. Right. And now, if this passes, if you go in and put a $5 wager on something, it may be $5.50 because the 50 cents goes to the state of Illinois.
Right.
I mean, I'm with you, Wags, on this. If you want me to supplement this, if you want me to pay this should be a separate fund. You can't use the funds that are built into my licenses, my hunting licenses, my fishing licenses, my stamps, whatever it be, and then you tell me, okay, we're going to go out and conserve the prairie, but then I can't hunt on it. Yeah. That doesn't jive for me. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
and you're right. And real quick, and I get it. So the people that buy kayak licenses, sailboat licenses, or county park licenses, that's different. Then you can allocate those, like you said, they can supplement that way. But when you're taking it strictly from me out of my hunting license, and then you're purchasing land that I can't access hunting-wise, I can just walk it. Like, that's where I see there's a fine line that needs to be. The problem is the past 4 or 5 years, it's gone that way. And now all of a sudden we're trying to pull back on it, and now there's an uproar. Nobody complained, or I didn't hear many voices when the land was being purchased and the outdoorsmen couldn't use it. But now when we're trying to pull it back, or they want to pull it back, I don't know. There's just issues that it's a big rat nest.
Yeah. So the Pittman-Robertson and the Dingell-Johnson Acts, they generate the taxes on sporting goods sales generate about $1.5 billion for conservation initiatives every year. It's about a 10% tax on most fishing equipment, an 11% tax on firearms, ammunition, and archery gear. And then there's a big breakdown of, each specific category has different taxation levels. But I don't know if you guys knew this. So one of the other things, it's kind of a parlay into this. One of the other things that came up that I saw too was that there's also some lobbying for a bill in Congress to address a problem with a large loophole in that as we become more and more of a global economy here in the U.S., there are online retailers and there are foreign retailers selling goods into the U.S. that are able to bypass that. so that there isn't actually a tax that is included with the purchases from some manufacturers and some retailers through online means. And that is also becoming an issue because we're missing out on some of that tax revenue generation from some of those like third parties or
that's the Temu rule.
That's the Temu rule.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's all kind of coming together in a lot of different ways, but they had made mention of a couple here, Penn, Shimano, Daiwa, Shakespeare, and so on. All brands that we're all very familiar with, that there's some ways that they're able to, do e-commerce into the United States without having, not a penalty, but having to be responsible for those taxes, which they shouldn't be able to do that, I guess. I mean, everybody should, if one's paying it, they should all be paying it. I mean,
I'm sure the government will get this figured out.
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
I think
long conversation about this, and we know what the ending is going to be. It's not going to be good.
There's probably never going to be an ending to it.
No.
It's just going to continue on and continue on. I saw something. I saw one of my friends had posted something very recently of, it's like in Dumb and Dumber where they're driving in the car and they're like shouting back and forth at one another. And like the title of it was, when you spent the last year and a half arguing with everybody that disagrees with you on politics, and now you have to work together for a common goal. And it's like one is libertarian, one is conservative, one is Democrats, and everybody is fighting the good fight for this public lands thing that is just really kind of taking over. And, I guess we'll just have to see where it goes. It's just another one of those major things that has really caught fire with a lot of people in the outdoors, and people want to be able to keep their public lands.
I was thinking that when you started this conversation, I was fearful of you would say that because of the numbers that seem to be dwindling when it comes to hunting, and not fishing so much, but certainly from the hunting, and we talk about the state of Wisconsin, that the genesis behind this is that, less people are hunting.
Right.
So
we don't need as many.
So we don't need as many.
Yeah.
More people are just out exploring nature.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
I've thought about this. And I guess the answer to that is just that, it's not only hunters and it's not only anglers and it's not only people who are, trying to harvest something. It's people who are just out hiking and people who are just trying to explore some of these parks and do some, mountain climbing and things like that. If I really wanted to rile people up on social media, I think the question that I would pose on everybody's post of them, trying to, be a voice for this is, but how much land do we actually need? I mean, we're talking about millions of acres here.
I thought you were going to say, let's just make America great again.
Oh, no.
Stir everybody up, too. So.
I guess we've never really talked about this, but we've mentioned their deli before. But, with us doing our show on Saturdays, let me just give you a quick flavor of the day on their deli that you can walk in, grab a sandwich. It's called Smokin' Saturdays. So you can walk in, you can grab a sandwich or a dinner of sliced barbecue smoked beef brisket, smoked beef shoulder, smoked pork shoulder, smoked Polish sausage, smoked baby back ribs, signature wings, hot baked ham, hickory smoked ham. I mean, just really anything you're kind of craving, they probably will be able to serve it up hot and fresh for you.
That's awesome.
They've also got sides. They've got soups every day as well. But they make it super easy, and if you're just looking for something as you're running around with the family, run in there, grab a sandwich.
Go into
maybe
Bunzel's.
bring something home for the grill tonight.
It's that easy.
So, and they've got everything, and every day of the week, Monday through Saturday, they're closed on Sundays, but every day of the week they've got different things. So, of course, Friday is kind of fish focused. They've got kind of a variety of things throughout the week then, and. Yeah, I mean, they just make it so easy where you can just walk in, grab something. But I will tell you, if you're getting there during lunch rush, make sure to get there early because it
gets a little
busy.
Deep. They are very busy.
They are busy. And don't forget to grab a number. A number is key.
Okay.
They've got the old school pull tab.
Right.
It's always interesting walking in there because, we do a lot of things with them. And as we're like bringing out meals or doing a lunch delivery or something like that, if you get there at the wrong time, you're going to be waiting a few minutes.
You're going to be waiting a few minutes. Again, go to their website. It is Bunzels.com.
Bunzels.com.
Yeah,
they've got everything there. And then, they've got deli menu up at the top, meat deals. So the monthly meat deals that we always talk about, they've got everything listed right there. So make sure to check them out. And if you're out and about, stop in there.
We appreciate their support of this program. If you have not downloaded a portion of this program or in its entirety, you can on the podcast page at this station's website. Oftentimes, there is no humor in poaching. No. But Mr. Tasker has found a somewhat humorous story involving poaching today.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of funny. We always talk about, poaching, and it's always some guy shot some, like, unbelievable deer that was 240 inches. And
we had a guy a couple of weeks ago that shot the grizzly bear, right? From Wisconsin?
That was not poaching, but that was another one. The elk was the story that we had recently talked about, that one of the big bull from
And I don't think they found
Lake.
Out who's done that yet,
there's still no updates on that. And so I was kind of browsing, and I saw an article, and I just thought, I probably need to talk about this. So we always talk about wild game. Well, in Washington, the state of Washington, there was a sergeant that was patrolling during deer season when he encountered some unexpected law violators. 2 males in a vehicle. Sergeant asked what they were up to, and the guys said, just looking for mushrooms. That's when the officer asked how they got entry to the private property that they were on, and apparently they just waited for someone to open a gate and drove in behind them, as if it was an open invite.
Okay.
So this, among many other reasons, mainly livestock, is why you leave a closed gate closed and an open gate open. The cows and the you keep the cows in and the riffraff out. So they first denied harvesting any mushrooms. Then they told the sergeant that they had some. And as the story says, that was the understatement of the century. The sergeant then found 179 pounds.
What?
Of chanterelle mushrooms in possession of the 2 in question. So if you can imagine a milk crate, like those old school milk crates that are still kind of floating around, they've got 14 full on the truck bed. 14 milk crates.
Hey, man, they left the gate open, man, and we followed behind him. It was
oh my goodness. Is that just something?
So now here's my question. Were these guys headed to a farmer's market?
Yeah, no.
I mean, what would you do with that?
Yeah, what would you do with that?
Is there a black market for this stuff? Maybe there is. I don't know.
The market value of chanterelles is about $25 per pound and only goes up from there. So that haul would have been about $5,000 worth.
Wow. And these were in the wild.
Well, they were on some of these private land, but they were just wild mushrooms. And the court will now have to determine if the combined fines for trespassing and not having a forest products permit will surpass that sum. So they have to figure out if trespassing, and apparently because they had so many, they needed a forest products permit in order to have that much in their possession.
Okay, so what about the people that are the private landowners?
It doesn't really say much about it.
Did they know? I mean, were they growing these there? And if not, how do you have like $5,000 worth of stuff sitting there? And you're like, yeah, it's just a few mushrooms. We just,
Wow.
There was for a short time, there was one of those shows like Mountain Men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was on ginseng.
Okay.
And the ginseng crop, and again, I'm sure they played it up so it became a TV show.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there were people who were ginseng farmers that were actually in the series patrolling their property with weapons because apparently the cost of ginseng is through the roof. the roots. Oh. And they're like an Appalachian.
The vitality.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Nutrition. Wow.
Who would have known that wild mushrooms would be worth that much?
Yeah. So, I think earlier in the episode I said just make sure to know what your local rules and regulations are for whatever you are planning on harvesting.
Regulations? We don't need no regulations.
Yeah.
We know. I know a guy.
Man.
I know a guy. And here's the other thing, too. So we're led to believe that they accidentally left the fence open, the gate open.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
So here it just goes on to say Washington State has its own rules regarding harvesting mushrooms and limitations for personal use. That's an interesting
recreational
term.
Use.
For guides for a guide to legally harvesting mushrooms in Washington, click here. What I love about this article, the end of it says, have some chanterelles of your own to cook up. Check out these recipes.
Of course.